Close your eyes and travel with me. 4.5 hours by light, 30 times farther from the sun than we are. Out here, sunlight doesn't warm. It whispers. A pale ghost of what we know, barely bright enough to cast a shadow. This is where the darkness begins to take hold. This is where we find the eighth world, the final giant, the forgotten sentinel at the threshold of oblivion. This is Neptune, the planet that shouldn't exist. For over a century, we knew something was wrong. Uranus wandered. Its path through the heavens bent and curved in ways that made no sense. Something invisible was pulling at it, dragging at its orbit like an anchor in the deep. Astronomers didn't need to see it to know it was there. They used nothing but ink and paper, equations scratched out by candlelight, predictions born from pure mathematics. And when they finally aimed their instruments at the calculated coordinates, there it floated, a sphere of impossible blue, hiding in plain sight for all of eternity. Think about how long a year lasts on Neptune. Since the moment humanity discovered this world, it has traveled only once around the sun. A single, lonely orbit. 165 Earth years to complete what we accomplish in 365 days. Time itself moves differently out here. Everything slows, everything waits. But don't mistake stillness for peace. Look closer at those azure clouds. They are not gentle, they are not calm. Neptune holds a secret that defies all logic. This frozen world, so far from the sun's warmth that it should be a lifeless ball of ice, is instead the most violent planet we have ever encountered. The winds here don't just blow, they annihilate. Supersonic hurricanes circle the planet at speeds exceeding 1,000 miles per hour. Faster than a bullet, faster than the roar of a jet engine, so fast that the sound of the storm cannot catch up to itself. If you could somehow survive the cold and pressure long enough to feel the wind, you would be torn apart molecule by molecule before you could even scream. How is this possible? Neptune sits in the frozen wastes of space, receiving almost no energy from the distant sun, and yet it burns. Deep inside this world, something is happening. An engine we don't fully understand generates enormous heat, pouring energy into the atmosphere from within. Neptune radiates 2.5 times more heat than it absorbs. It is a furnace wrapped in ice, a contradiction that makes no sense, and yet exists anyway. When Voyager 2 passed by in the late 80s, it captured images of a storm larger than our entire planet. They called it the Great Dark Spot, a howling vortex of wind and fury spinning in the southern hemisphere like an open wound in the sky. But when Hubble looked again years later, the storm had disappeared, completely vanished. Then new storms appeared elsewhere. These tempests are not permanent like Jupiter's Great Red Spot. They are phantoms. They emerge without warning, rage across the planet, and then evaporate into nothing. Neptune doesn't just have weather. It has hauntings, descend through the clouds, plunge thousands of miles into the crushing depths. The pressure here becomes unbearable. Gravity squeezes everything with relentless force. And in this hellish crucible, carbon atoms compress and crystallize. Scientists believe the impossible happens here. It rains diamonds, not tiny specks, but massive gemstones the size of houses, tumbling through an ocean of superheated liquid methane and ammonia. A fortune beyond measure falling eternally through an inferno no human will ever witness. Even Neptune's magnetic field is wrong. Unlike Earth, where the field aligns neatly with the poles, Neptune's magnetosphere is twisted, tilted at a wild angle and offset from the center of the planet. It's as if the core itself is displaced, broken, generating a lopsided shield that wobbles and distorts as the planet rotates. No one knows why. And then there's Triton. Neptune's largest moon didn't start here. It was stolen, ripped from the Kuiper belt and forced into captivity. Triton orbits backward, a death sentence in celestial mechanics. Every orbit brings it closer. Gravity is patient but inevitable. Millions of years from now, Neptune will shred Triton into fragments, creating a ring system more spectacular and darker than Saturn's, a monument to destruction. This is Neptune, the beautiful nightmare, the last world before the void swallows everything.